Welcome to Whachacha's Tabletop World, a channel devoted to the love of board gaming. My name is Sweetness Whachacha, and these are my thoughts on Unmatched, Tales to Amaze. If you'd like to see a brief overview of the game, click on the link on the screen or down below. Before we get too into it, let's talk about the competitive game. If you're a fan of the competitive game and you have some stuff, this product to me is a no-brainer. I mean, it's giving you 4 new characters with different abilities and things like that, and a different mode that you can run every other hero that you have against for variety's sake. Whether that's because you want to mix things up a little bit, or you want to run something solo, or if you have another player that maybe isn't at your skill level and you still want to be able to give them the experience of playing the game. So pretty much a no-brainer if you were into Unmatched. Now, I say this as someone who's never played the competitive game. I don't have a partner that will play that style of game with me, so I was looking at this as a standalone product. Of course, there are some other character packs and things I've been eyeing in the game store that look interesting that I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool to add those in and run them against here. So this is going to be more of a standalone review. Now, the components in this game are very well done. The miniatures, like the Martian miniatures and the Mothman, they look incredible. They look really, really good. And the minis for the other characters look quite good as well. They're also all washed, and Alien Invaders has some green, clear plastic on it and stuff like that. So if you don't want to paint them, you don't have to. Although, obviously, they are very paintable and they will look good that way. The art, I think, is astounding. On the cards, like the Golden Bat, for instance, looks incredibly cool. I really love the art. It's not really that prevalent. You play the cards quite quickly, and you don't necessarily always look at it, but when you do actually take the time to look at some of the art, it really, really works. Now, I love the theme that they've kind of gone through here. They've kind of hit that 50s style, with the Martians and the Mothman and stuff, and then all the characters. They're not really well-known characters. Obviously, Nikola Tesla is the standout there. People do know who he is. I personally really love him, and so he's going to be the one I'm drawn to mainly. But they all operate kind of interestingly. They all have their decks and their different abilities, so they all play a little bit differently. Now, I say the characters play quite differently, and they do. They have their different skills and strengths and weaknesses, but essentially, this game is pretty simple. You're going to move, and you're going to attack. Now, let's take moving first. When you move, you're going to draw a card, which is great, but mostly moving isn't really that helpful. I could see in the competitive game it being very cat and mouse, if I move, then you can attack me. I don't want you to be able to attack me twice, and you're worrying about the economy of the other player. But here, it doesn't really matter. If you move someplace, most of the enemies are going to be able to move and hit you. So you're not really moving out of the way a lot, and also you don't really want to because you want to be able to strike back. And so they have this really cool system with the color-coded things that really simplify the idea of it's supposed to represent cover, I guess, or being in an advantageous position like a hill or something. And so I really love this simplified system, the way it works. But there really isn't, does it make a difference? It's like, I can hit the person, I'm just going to stay here and just continually hit them. You might move occasionally because you need to draw cards. Obviously, that's one of the major reasons you're going to move. But also, if you think okay, I'm going to move so my partner is going to be able to, be the target of the minion and the villain. I've been getting beat on too much. I got to kind of move out of the way. And that's not that exciting to me. I wish that they'd been able to do a little bit more with that, making moving more compelling. Now, other games, I know, I'm a big fan of the LCGs for Fantasy Flight and stuff. And, they have these two sort of economies in all those games. One is fighting. All of them share that in common. But then they also have this other thing, like Lord of the Rings has questing and quest points, and Marvel Champions has threat, the enemy will be scheming. So there's two economies you're going for, and it makes a lot more interesting choices in the game. Now, this game is much simpler than any of those games are, but the concept of basically what are you going to do? I think I'll attack, so it's not really that compelling. And whatever you've got in your hand, you look at what you've got in your hand, and that's what you're going to play. Now, to use those other games as an example, again, those games have this thing that when they started, the decks were huge and very varied. And as the life of the game continued, the decks would shrink and shrink and shrink. So you'd be getting a more consistent approach to any kind of deck you had. And in this game, you have a sizable enough deck that you might not catch the combos and things that you want. And I kind of wish that you could run through your deck a couple of times, to provide a little more of a consistent approach, because sometimes there's some really powerful cards, like Nikola Tesla has the one that like allows you to charge up and then essentially take another action, so it's a freebie. If you don't get those, that's kind of a big deal. That really changes the way that the strength of your character. So yeah, the movement isn't that exciting. The attacking, the one thing I really like about the game actually is the idea of like, do I spend a card? What's more important? Do I attack and then attack again using each of these cards, because you can't attack if you don't have a card? Or do you boost? Do you try to just, because like you could attack twice, the enemy's always going to play a card. I think in the competitive version, you're like, I'm guessing, of course, as I said, but do you play a card and spend that card, or do I attack you, you spend your defense card, and then I hit you with my big attack? But here it doesn't matter. The enemy is always going to play a card. They're always going to get a card to defend. And so it does incentivize you to try to boost an action, because you could attack twice and do no damage. Or you can boost that action and try to get a more effective damage. So, and sadly, like, there isn't a lot of like teamwork in this game. Now, I think that's great for some players that are going to think like, I like to do my own thing. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I don't want to be quarterbacked. I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to coordinate. I just want to do my own thing. And I think, to me, like, if I play a cooperative game, I want to be doing those teamwork. I want to find a way to like team up and do actions together. And simply, that's really not in this game. Another thing is like, like something that I think is probably very effective in the competitive game is discarding cards. Here, like, it's built into like each of the characters have the cards that like will discard cards. Here, it doesn't make any difference. If you discard a card from the enemy deck, if it's a deception, it just shuffles the deck. If it's any other card, it doesn't matter, because they're going to get their deck shuffled anyway. Makes zero difference whether you're discarding cards or not. And I think that's kind of a shame. It's weird, like I understand why they did the game in this way. And this is going to kind of like push me into like talking about the concept of this particular like cooperative expansion, right? Is the fact that like the characters, I know they wanted to make the characters so you could play them outside in other, competitively, and that you could play it seamlessly with the competitive game. But it really kind of feels like, wouldn't you have made these characters particularly good at fighting these, these villains, instead of like giving them some powers and things that don't really matter in this style of a game? It kind of feels like that's kind of the thing about this game, is it's like, sure, you could play this, but Unmatched also exists. Even the rule books, there's 2 different rule books, and I'm like, why are there? It's like, read the other rule book, and I'm like, for such a simple game, why do I have 2 rule books? Just put all the rules in this rule book. It just seems very odd to me. You have to read the Unmatched core rules to play this game, and I'm like, I just put it all in one. I think that's kind of the philosophy here. I guess I would have preferred if, like, instead of this kind of approach, they had said, hey, look, you're going to buy like a packet of cards, and it's going to be like a box of cards, and it's going to be all the released Unmatched characters, and it's going to be how those characters all act, to fight each other. I think I would have preferred something like that. Now, the system does work. It is interesting. Like, it does work as a game. I think I've been saying some negative things here, but it's not a bad game. It's just not like super exciting. And I was really very much hoping, like, I was like, give me an excuse. I'm going to the game store and I'm buying like Sinbad and Medusa and Sherlock Holmes and the Invisible Man. I was like hoping for that. But really, it's fine. I mean, it's a fine game, but it's not super compelling to me. And I wish that like it's an example, I think, of like, hey, it works as a cooperative game, but like the tenseness that would make the competitive game interesting is removed. And I think that's maybe the strongest points of that game system, or the most compelling looking to me, at least. So, I mean, yeah, focus firing is about as much as you're going to get as a strategy for teamwork. Is like, hey, let's kill this. Should we kill the minions, or should we kill the villains? Now, the villains themselves, that's it. Like I said, I wish that, when I first heard of this, I was like, there's only 2? I mean, you got like 700 characters for Unmatched, but 2 villains. But really, I think they've put most of them, the stuff in is with these minions. And I really do, so I really do love the minions. I mean, first of all, they look great. And like I said, the components, all the dials, they all have their own dials and things. I really quite like that. But this is how the game becomes a little more different. They all play very differently, and you can mix and match different ones to your taste. And I really like that part of the system. I think if they didn't have those minions, or the quantity of them, I think this is kind of a throwaway product. But I think because they have those minions, they'll change the way that each of those villains plays, and they'll, like I said, they tax different economies and things like that. So that's really cool. And thematically, I like that they all kind of work together in this 50s style of a game. So I know I've been a little bit negative on it, but I'll sum up a little bit. it looks amazing. Graphic design, the dials, everybody's got their own little dial and piece and stuff, and the miniatures and the artwork, everything looks really, really, really fantastic. The theme is really spot on. I love the 50s. I love all the minions and things like that. Really well done. The variety of the minions, great. Maybe not enough variety in villains. Okay. Easy purchase if you're going to play the competitive game. But as a standalone cooperative game, if you're just going to play this, not enough choices for me personally. It plays fine, and it's probably a good introduction for certain people. But as far as my taste, I wouldn't refuse to play it, but I'm not super excited about playing it. But hopefully, my thoughts on the game will help you decide whether or not this is a game for you. If you'd like to see a brief overview of the game, you can click on the link on the screen or down below. But for now, I gotta roll.